With the Jake Retzloff situation finalized and BYU moving on, the focus now turns to BYU's quarterback battle in training camp and what Aaron Roderick and ultimately Kalani Sitake will opt to do.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about BYU's quarterback battle that we'll have in training camp upcoming. And it's one of the biggest questions, maybe the biggest question BYU has to answer during their month-long training camp. Then we'll also catch up with a guy who's going to be, I think, that new quarterback's best friend, Chase Roberts, poised for a monster senior season at BYU. What does he hope to accomplish? Well, I had a chance to catch up with him at Big 12 Media Days, and I'll explain exactly what he hopes to do in his final stanza as a BYU Cougar. And then we'll finish up today's show on the recruiting front with Jax Tanner announcing his commitment over the weekend. What is BYU getting in this four-star prospect? We'll break that down ahead on today's show. So without further ado, let's dive right in and talk about the biggest question entering training camp for the BYU football program. And that, simply put, is what is Kalani Sitake and ultimately Aaron Roderick going to do to replace Jake Retzloff? It's a great question. I don't think anybody has a solid answer for it because, quite simply, I don't think they have a solid answer as to what they're going to do. I believe that Aaron Roderick, Kalani Sitake, Fesi Sitake, anybody involved, Matt Mitchell is the now quarterbacks coach or assistant quarterbacks coach, I should say. They all probably have an idea in their heads of what they ultimately will want to do come training camp, but they have to do the right thing in favor of the overall program and let this play out. The simple fact of the matter is BYU is going to enter training camp with four quarterbacks vying to be the starting quarterback at BYU. And I don't want to count anybody out. And that includes Emerson Geilman, who is a true freshman enrollee for BYU. I know that Bear Bachmeier, as crazy as it is, he's a transfer from Stanford, but he's also a true freshman, both of them 18 years old. Then you have McCae Hillstead, who has got a grand total of one season under his belt in terms of playing time at Utah State, including a season last year, backing up Jake Retzloff. And then you have a guy like Trayson Bourget, who had 2 seasons at Western Michigan, 1 season at BYU, and now enters his redshirt junior year, hoping to take the reins of the BYU offense. And if you've been living under a rock and missed it, Jake Retzloff has officially moved on from BYU. He's withdrawn from classes at Brigham Young University, and he'll be looking for a new program to call home. We talked about that over the weekend. If you want to go back and listen to that special edition we did on Friday afternoon, you can go and check that out and then hop back in here. But I think the biggest thing going into training camp for Kalani Sitake and the Cougars is to let this play out as long as it needs to. And that includes potentially on into the early part of the regular season. There's this thing called the non-conference schedule. BYU opens up the season 47 days away from today, taking on Portland State. Then they'll take on Stanford the week after that. Then they will go across the country to East Carolina University to take on the Pirates. Those 3 games, if BYU does not feel like one of these 4 quarterbacks emerges in training camp and has to probably emerge in the first, feels like 2.5 weeks. So we're talking by the time mid-August rolls around, about this time next month, BYU very well may let this play out and maybe play multiple quarterbacks in those 3 games in hopes that somebody emerges as that proverbial gamer and says, this is my job, seizes it, and then BYU feels a lot more comfortable as they get ready for their Big 12 opener at Colorado on September 27th. That's the drop dead date. It feels like is the week of September, so September 21st through the 27th. That's the week that BYU has to, in my mind, settle on a quarterback and say, this is our guy. And it simply is because they need to have somebody they can rally around going into Big 12 play. Yeah, you can screw around in the non-conference slate of games, and the caliber of opponents in those, the toughest of the 3 opponents in my mind is easily East Carolina. And you can combine that with the travel element, going 2 time zones. That obviously is the biggest landmine that you could find in that non-conference slate of games. But those games are the proving ground for, it feels like, potentially a 2-way battle between McCae Hillstead and Trayson Bourget, or truly a 3-way battle between Bourget, McCae Hillstead and Bear Bachmeier. And no matter who you talk to at BYU, you've heard to give them that truth serum and say, hey, who do you want to be BYU's quarterback? You probably get a different answer from different parties. I think the BYU will do their best to put as many game-like scenarios into their practices come August when training camp fires up to give them a better idea, or at least as good of an idea as they can muster about who is going to be or who should be that guy under center to replace Jake Retzloff. I don't envy this decision because, quite honestly, it's going to be one that is going to be scrutinized by yours truly, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, of other people out there, whether they're media or fans alike. It is going to be closely monitored. It's going to be parsed to just the smallest, finest details. You will have guys arguing, okay, do you want more of a dual threat quarterback in the mold of a Bear Bachmeier or a McCae Hillstead, or more of a traditional pocket passer that can move like a Trayson Bourget or an Emerson Geilman? I don't think any one of these guys is counted out at this juncture in terms of their ability to potentially emerge as BYU's starting quarterback. But I think in the coaches' minds, I think they have an idea of who probably is got the lead in that race. And if you're asking my opinion on said matter, I believe it's McCae Hillstead who has a leg up. The other side of it is, does BYU value potentially, okay, if we look at this year, coming off an 11-2 campaign as a year that we absolutely need to capitalize on the field and win as many games as possible, well, that probably delineates that you're probably going to go with a more experienced hand or hands at the quarterback position, giving an edge to a McCae Hillstead or a Trayson Bourget. Or if you feel like, you know what, with all the turmoil this program was in throughout the offseason, really since May, when that alleged sexual assault came via a civil lawsuit against Jake Retzloff, could BYU say, you know what, this is the year to go all in on a young quarterback like a Bear Bachmeier and take the lumps and the growing pains that come with starting a first-year quarterback. It's going to be a very interesting thing to watch kind of play out in real time. And that's honestly what we have to do. We have to give it time. I know that doesn't satiate probably your feeling on the matter, because you probably would like me to say it's going to be this guy as a starting quarterback. You can book it by the end of next month. That's going to be the guy. I could say that all I want, but as many of you know, I'm a media member. I am a second guesser by trade. The first guessers, that's Aaron Roderick. That's Kalani Sitake. That's Matt Mitchell. Those are the guys who are there in the meeting rooms, who are watching the film, who are breaking down every analytic, every detail. And they ultimately have to make the final call on this. And I don't think they'll be in a hurry to make that final call, at least until it feels like maybe 2.5 weeks into training camp, when in many respects, last year, remember, there were so many reports early on in camp between Jake Retzloff and Gary Bohannon. But once things got about 3 weeks into camp, Jake ended up being inserted as the guy, and they invested all of the reps at that point into him to get ready ahead of the regular season. This year, if they don't have that answer, maybe as late as 3 weeks into camp, you could see this quarterback battle spill into the regular season. And I don't fault anybody for being necessarily happy about that circumstance, but that might be the necessity that comes with what BYU has in terms of figuring out who their starting quarterback is going to be for the balance of the 2025 football season. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk with a guy who figures to be that new quarterback, whoever it might be, or quarterbacks, plural, best friend. That's Chase Roberts. He has been ultra dependable during his time as a BYU Cougar as he enters his fifth and final season as a BYU football player. What does he hope to accomplish, and what does he want to leave as his legacy at BYU? He answers that and a whole lot more in a one-on-one conversation we'll get to next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, all of us have gotten online to buy tickets to whatever event it may have been, but you probably have logged in, been sitting there hoping that waiting room was going to let you get you your tickets, and all of a sudden something happens and you lose your spot for the show you've been dying to see, or a game you're trying to get to. We've all had this happen to us, but you know what? The stress of ticket shopping can be taken out with our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes your concert tickets and really any tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually actually drop as they get closer to showtime, so you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And the best part is, if you're tired of endless scrolling trying to get the best deal, their zone deals pick the best seats in the section for you, and then you just move on and get on with your life. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. You see it right up front in the app, and that's the best part about what I think Game Time brings to the table. And if you're worried about what happens if plans change, their Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and read the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and it's all guaranteed. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube and I look like my face is being washed out a little bit, my ring light, hey, I'm a vlogger. I've got one of those ring lights that I've been using for quite literally years. I think I've had the same ring light since we started doing the show on YouTube, and that goes back, 3 or 4 years at this point. And I think it's dying because I turned it on, and I usually have a lower setting because, already pretty pale as it is, it feels like, but I turned it on and I cannot get the brightness setting to go any lower than it is. And it's like on blind me mode, it feels like, in many respects. So you know what? If you're watching this on YouTube and you're wondering why it looks probably a little whitewashed to my face, that's why. So pulling back the curtain a little bit, I do have an order in for a new ring light, and we'll hopefully have that installed in very short order. But that's not what you came here for. Let's talk BYU football, though, and let's talk with a guy in Chase Roberts, obviously, who has been a guy that's, I called him ultra dependable. Mr. Dependable, I guess, is a good term for who he has been. Remember, this is a young man. When he committed to BYU, he blew up in the recruiting cycle. If you remember all those years back, it goes way back, even before the pandemic. He went to a Nike Combine event. There's all these Combine events anymore, but it's kind of one of the first of its kind. They called them a Spark Score, SPARQ was the score, and essentially was like putting all of your stats and your performance in that combine into a number generator, and it would spit out what level of athlete you were. And as I remember it, he put out one of the highest Spark scores at that point that had ever been recorded, and he had been committed to BYU, if I recall, at that point. But all of a sudden, we're talking the Ohio States, the Michigans, the who's who of the college football world saw this Chase Roberts from American Fork, Utah, had this incredible score at a 6'4" wide receiver, and all of a sudden offers started pouring in. To his credit, he stuck, if I recall the circumstances, he stuck with his commitment to the BYU football program, served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, enrolled at BYU, and after enduring some injury concerns early on in his career, all he's become is just this model of consistency for the BYU football program. So what does he hope to accomplish in his final season as a Cougar this fall, and with an unsettled quarterback position to boot? Well, he had a lot of good answers, and I had a chance to catch up with him at Big 12 Media Days, and here is that conversation.
Chase, media days are a crazy time, obviously. What's the weirdest question you've been asked so far?
Ooh, there's been a lot of, this last interview we just had was pretty interesting when it comes to like different agent stuff, and but I think the weirdest one has been how much land would it take for you to transfer somewhere else?
Like how much land you could own?
Like how much land would they have to offer you? That was an interesting one, but
did you have a good answer for it?
No, I was like, land? I've never even thought about that. But
they say real estate is gold in a way. So
yeah, I just said I'd never leave BYU. So.
BYU's your place.
That's right.
I can respect that. Now, you talk about agents. That's kind of a new era of college athletics where you actually have agents. Do you have an agent that helps you out with deals and the like?
Not as much the NIL stuff. Okay. I mean, I have somebody that I'll go through if something's very complicated and complex. But when it comes to the NFL stuff, I have a couple that I'm talking to, and I'll decide probably around the season, end of the season time.
Now, obviously, big season upcoming for you personally. You were named to the all-preseason Big 12 team. How big of an honor was that for you to see that?
I think it's cool. I think it's great, especially for the draft and getting your name out there. And but ultimately, we got to win games, and I gotta go perform, right, and do the things that I need to do to get drafted. So when it comes down to it, it's cool, but still got to go make some plays.
With the uncertainty around the quarterback position, obviously that's probably be a concern of yours because you talk about being able to perform. What's your mindset that no matter who's under center, you're still going to do your thing?
Yeah, I think there's never one person that's going to win us a game. It's a team effort, and I think we have a great team. So when it comes to the quarterback situation, we're just excited for whoever steps up and goes and makes plays this fall, because whoever's going to play is going to make a bunch of great plays. So we're excited for who kind of shines during fall camp and then is the guy.
Now, as you've been working this offseason, what have been your focuses, like in terms of what you want to improve on the most?
Yeah, the biggest thing was getting healthy.
Yeah.
And then watching a lot of film, making sure that I understand, like as a quarterback would, and then taking it to the next level when it comes to pressures and different coverages and stuff like that. So that's what I've been focusing on this offseason.
When you went down in that bowl game, did you know you were going to be out as long as you were?
Yeah, they told me right away.
Okay.
And it was great, honestly, being able to kind of view from the quarterback perspective, take spring ball to rest a little bit. It was my 5th spring ball, so I feel really good, really healthy, ready to go. And it was, I think, a blessing in disguise to be able to take the offseason and really hone in on the playbook and get healthy.
Do you feel 100% now? You ready to rock and roll?
Ready to rock and roll. Yep,
okay.
100%.
Now, this offense, obviously, with Aaron Roderick, it's multifaceted, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah.
How many wrinkles do you anticipate him even making this year as compared to maybe previous years?
I think you got to adapt to the quarterback you have, right? And you got to be able to use their strengths. And I think whoever ends up, as the quarterback, I think he'll adapt to their strengths and we'll be able to make plays. And I think we got the athletes at every position, so it doesn't matter. A-Rod's going to do his thing, and we're going to score a lot of points this fall.
I know that your receiver room's come back mostly intact, obviously. You added Tiger Bachmeier to the mix.
Yeah.
Have you met him? What's he like? What do you expect?
Yeah, Tiger's the man. He's awesome. He definitely adds a lot of personality to the room, and just a funny, fun kid. Great player. He's going to make some plays and be big time for us this fall.
Okay, are you as good of a golfer as Parker Kingston is?
No, I'm not. I'm going to be honest, but I'm getting there. I'm getting a lot better.
I don't think anybody's as good as Parker.
No, he's a great player, but I'm getting there.
Obviously, he plays a multifaceted role, probably figures the slot in kind of where Keelan was as a returner. Mm-hmm. How good do you think a guy like Parker could be?
I think he can be an NFL guy, like a great player that if he has a season like he should this year, he can end up getting drafted this year. So with his speed and his knowledge of the game and the experience that he has now, I think he can have a huge breakout season.
Do you have any stated goals like yardage, touchdown, anything you've stated you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I always do right before the season. Not super specific, I guess. You want to kind of hit the standard for an NFL receiver, of course, and kind of be up there with those guys. But really, what it comes down to is what each team likes, right? And just do the things that I focus on my strengths as well as develop some of my weaknesses. So I'm just going to be the playmaker that I was last year, and just double down on that, making big-time plays in big-time situations.
You guys are very close as a team to making the Big 12 title game. Is that a motivating factor to say, hey, we want to break through this year?
Yeah, of course. It's a game that we want to play in, and I think we're just going to take it one game at a time, though. Not worry about it until it comes. But it's definitely something that we'd love to play in.
Well, I'll get you out of here on this. As you look forward to, obviously, your future as a professional football player, what do you want your legacy to be remembered as at BYU?
I think someone who's just consistent in, who he was. And I guess that's someone who is faith-driven, someone who is God-fearing and that glorifies him in everything that he does. And just an example to the younger generation, those that want to play football, those that just want to be a good person. So that's the kind of legacy that I love to leave at BYU.
A big thank you to Chase Roberts for taking the time to join myself and obviously Cougar Nation here on Locked On Cougars. And you heard him talk about the fact that he wants to leave a legacy of just knowing that, being that guy that Cougar fans and obviously his quarterbacks, it'll be plural at this point, could rely upon during his time as a Cougar. But he is poised to have a really, really big year. And whoever ends up as the starting quarterback for the BYU football program, they're lucky to have number 2 out there on the edge for them, along with the other weapons in that BYU offense. But when in doubt, look for Chase, because he has been absolutely lights out in critical downs and distances and situations for the BYU football program for quite some time. And I'm very eager to see where his football career takes him down the line, because this feels like a young man who is just, in many respects, still scratching the surface of his potential. But he's going to be an older prospect come the time of the NFL draft next year, and we'll see what happens on that front. But the only thing he can control at this point, and you heard him kind of allude to it, is he's got to go out there, put on a performance for the ages, and then see what happens after that. And I can respect the way that he is approaching it, and you also can tell that he takes his role as a leader very, very seriously, as he should, because a lot of good leaders last year graduated from this program, and they need guys like Chase to step up into that void and be one of those voices that speaks out when other guys need somebody to rally around. All right. So once again, a big thank you to Chase Roberts for taking the time to join me at Big 12 Media Days. And we'll have many more of those interviews. I said I've got I think 17 of them. That's one of 17. They'll be rolling out here in the coming days and weeks leading up to BYU training camp. All right. Coming up next, BYU picked up a big recruitment. I'm not saying big because he's an offensive lineman. I'm talking big because he is absolutely everything BYU wants in terms of an interior offensive lineman. And yet again, they have beaten the who's who of college football for another high-level commitment. Who is it? Well, it's Jax Tanner. And what does he bring to the BYU football program? We'll delve into that next as Locked On Cougars rolls on. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing well out there. If you have not joined the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, now is a great time to join. The best part is with training camp beginning, we're going to start to get a lot of reports, what I'm hearing and seeing from BYU football practices and the like. They go to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group members first, and you get them via text message. Come right to your phone, and you can interact with the show as well. And the best part about it, it's just $5 a month to be a part of the Insiders Group, and you get a 14-day free trial before you're charged a single penny. So 2 full weeks. If you want to get started today, by the time training camp rolls around, you will be engrossed with what we're doing with Locked On Cougars and our Insider Group. So join us today. All right, let's talk about Jax Tanner. BYU got a big commitment on Saturday, and as he announced his commitment, and he's now the 20th commitment to the BYU recruiting class, which as of recording of this podcast, they are 21st in the 24/7 sports rankings. They had briefly moved inside the top 20 up to 19th earlier on in the weekend, but they've since slid back down to 21st. But I think given time, you'll see that ranking slide up once again, and a potential commitment tonight from the likes of an Adam Bywater could help push BYU back into the top 20, and we'll see what he ultimately decides, and we'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Cougars. But as we talk about Jax Tanner, I want to throw up his huddle highlights because many of you know that I'm an offensive lineman. I played offensive line in high school, and I am a lineman junkie. My two guest hosts, I guess you'd call them, in terms of BYU players the last few years, have both been offensive linemen. I love hog mollies, as I like to call them, and because they are guys who toil in anonymity, but they're absolutely critical to the success of their football program. So I'm going to throw this up here and let you guys see Jax Tanner's highlights as we talk about him as a football player. What you are going to notice is this is a dude, he plays both a tackle and guard for Rocky Mountain High School up there in Idaho, but he is an absolute mauler. He loves burying opponents. I think it was Casey Lundquist that put this out there over the weekend when he announced his commitment that last year as a junior at Rocky Mountain High School, he had over 100 pancake blocks. That's burying a guy into the ground and 0 sacks given up. 6'4", 280 to 285 pounds, depending on where you look in terms of his stats. And he is the prototypical interior offensive lineman because at 6'4", I'm hard pressed to believe that he'll be playing tackle for BYU when he gets to Provo. But the best part about it is he is the type of interior offensive lineman that BYU absolutely loves to have as a member of their football program. He loves pointing out guys and just going and getting them when it comes to going to the second level. He's a road grader in the run game, and he's not a bad pass protector in his own right. But I love the nasty technical side of how he plays the game of football because it's a type of coaching that you want from a young offensive lineman like this. He does have plans to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the earliest you can expect I think him to enroll is 2028. But when he enrolls at BYU, he carries on a family legacy. His dad, Mike Tanner, played linebacker for BYU in the early 2000s. And he's got an older brother, Gage Tanner, who is I think a preferred walk-on who committed to BYU back in 2023, is now coming home off of a mission, is expected to join the football program this fall. So the Tanner name is linked up for BYU in a second generation. And if you watch these highlights, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing a dude who just absolutely buries dudes, likes to make them feel silly, and probably the same type of guy that at the end of the play says, hey, that was fun. Let's go do it again. And the guy on this is like, no, I don't want to do that again. Why? I can tell you, as unaccomplished as an offensive lineman as I was, even at the high school level, when you have a chance to bury a dude on the football field, there is no better feeling than just single-handedly dominating a guy against their will, because they're trying to beat you in their own right, and you just kind of give them a wink and say, let's go do that all over again. It is an absolutely electric feeling, and I know the guy like Jax Tanner, he brings that to the field every single time he suits up, whether it's the high school level and soon enough for the BYU football program. I see him probably eventually being a standout offensive guard for BYU, but I cannot discount potentially him being a center. The good news is, whoever or wherever he lines up for BYU along that offensive line, he's the type of guy who could be a multi-year starter and just lock it down. You can put him at left guard, right guard, or center and know that for however long left he's got in a BYU uniform, 2, 3, 4 years, that barring something unforeseen, injury and the like, you can essentially pencil him in for the foreseeable future at that position. And a lot of interior offensive linemen have been really, really good for BYU in recent years. Connor Pay, I think Waylon Lapuaho this year is going to absolutely stand out. I think Kyle Saforchich transferring into the BYU football program is poised to be a really, really nice piece for BYU. Bruce Mitchell, what a find he has been moving over from the defensive line and manning that center spot. All of them have let BYU fans enjoy a lot of I'd say peace, knowing that the interior offensive line play is not going to let BYU down. Former BYU offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes said, and he still says it to this day, even though he's at Wisconsin now, is that the offensive line needs to be the tip of the spear. An offensive lineman like Jax Tanner, yeah, they're the reason why the tip of the spear analogy works, because they just absolutely make everything else work. And I love the way he goes about playing the game of football. It's a no nonsense. He doesn't necessarily showboat when he dominates guys. You can tell he's having fun out there, but he's not just like, say, hey, look at me, look at me. He knows what his job is. He gets it done to the best of his ability. And those stats, 100+ pancake tackles with 0 sacks given up, very few offensive linemen, even at the high school level, can say that they've had that type of success. And I guess the kicker to all of this is that BYU beat out the likes of, once again, Oregon, Michigan, Tennessee. Those are all programs he made official visits to, and he ultimately chose BYU. He mentioned that Ryder Lyons was pushing him really, really hard to pick the Cougars. 5-star quarterbacks want big, burly offensive linemen to protect them, and that's exactly what Jax Tanner is figuring to do for a guy like Ryder Lyons down the line. And I love the fact that he also had attention and recruiting from the likes of Penn State, USC, Auburn, Washington, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Nebraska. Essentially, name the who's who of college football, and BYU beat them out for yet another high-level prospect. He's either a high 3-star prospect. I know 24/7 Sports has him as a 3-star. I know the Rivals has him as a 4-star prospect. And I think given time, he probably moves up into consensus 4-star territory by the end of the season. He is that good of a prospect, and BYU is really, really fortunate to have him as a part of this 2026 recruiting cycle. And I can envision, come say 28, 29, 30, those years for BYU football, there's going to be a guy wearing that number for BYU. 52 is what he wears in high school, that you're going to see a guy like Jax Tanner emerge and just be an absolute force for the BYU football program. And I'm excited to see that day come, because they've been really, really lucky to have some standout offensive linemen in recent years. But the future, it looks extremely bright for Jax Tanner and the rest of the BYU football program, with him joining an already stellar, and I think quite literally the best recruiting class in BYU football history. Now, they obviously have to go prove it on the field, but the star rating system, this is the best BYU's ever done, and it feels like it's still got a ways to go, because once again tonight a guy like Adam Bywater could add his name to that list, and we'll see where that all shakes out. But as always, thank you for all of your support. You guys are absolutely the best. Cannot thank you guys enough for your continued support of the show, whitewash face and all, if that's what you're seeing on YouTube. But nonetheless, thank you for being a part of Locked On Cougars every single day. Thank you for rating and reviewing it, liking it, subscribing on YouTube, doing all the things you guys do to build this audience. We've had an incredible 2025, and it is not slowing down anytime soon as we now gear up for the 2025 football season. We'll be back with you guys again tomorrow, right here on Locked On Cougars.